Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Citizen LY, the platform where we speak truth to power. This is an urgent SOS message. SOS message to all of the African nations, the puppet nations in particular, nations that are wedded to the colonials, those that are still working closely with their former colonial masters, all those nations on the African continent. News flash, news alert. The US borrowing just hit $200 trillion. $200 trillion. What does that mean? What is the impact of that? Let me just play you a little clip here, then we'll come back and discuss further on. Here we go.
Just a week or two ago, the reserves, the total reserves in terms of the central banks of the world, the euro just fell from 2 to 3, with gold moving up to number 2. Gold represents the second most um, heavily owned asset in central bank portfolios. So it's not just the dollar, it's all the G7 countries that are in trouble. But the world reserve status of the dollar is something that is waning. I would argue the supremacy is still here, but the hegemony, it's gone.
The idea of the national debt, this nightmare, and the upcoming US elections is just going to make the situation worse, right? Well, I'm sure everyone here, you, the viewer, we all know that the national debt is like around $35 trillion. As you said, every second it's like 100 grand. And we're going to hit 1.2 trillion a year, right? And it gets quite ridiculous that even at 5.5% interest rates, the US government keeps borrowing money like no tomorrow without any regard with the debt. And how do you think the Fed rate cuts really factor into this, right? Because as we all know, the Fed cut rates by 50 points, and by the end of the year, it's probably going to go under 5% quite easily. Do you see this actually accelerating government spending? And what is this going to cause? Are we going to cause explosion in the money supply? And is inflation going to be a persistent and perpetual crisis?
Right. Let me just pause there. That's Sean Fu. He's something of an expert in financial markets and you know investments and things like that. I've been following him for quite some time, and I've been following his program. But I mentioned and pretty much around the time he started talking about that, look, the dollarization was coming. I've been doing programs and I've been trying to raise the red flag. Guys, hello, Africans, wake up, de-dollarize. And I've done so many programs about de-dollarization. I've done it. It's really largely fallen on deaf ears in many of those puppet nations. But great news today, like I said, Mali dumped the IMF and the World Bank, and they are now moving towards the BRICS to partner with. And as I told you, Burkina Faso, they've actually now linking their currency to the resources in their land. You will hear them talk about the value of the gold going up. Very important. Important to really understand that. So the value of the gold has gone up in value. That means that in Africa, where we have the gold, we must connect our currency to our gold. It is appreciating in value. The dollar that we are trading in is losing value. So we are going to be, they will be giving us loans via IMF, via World Bank to be indebted to them so they can have direct access to our gold, our mineral resources on the African continent. It is time we urgently have a meeting across the 54 African nations to set up our own currency systems. The BRICS are there. Nobody's stopping them. This is a perfect opportunity for us in the African continent to do that right now. We strongly need to do that because this oppression, exploitation of our resources is simply not acceptable. It is totally unacceptable. And we say this right now that we must make sure that we continue to urge others to follow in the footsteps of Mali, Assimi Goita, Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore, and General Chiani of Niger. They are now having working with others on strict agreements that favors the African continent on their own terms. The memorandum of understanding they're making is always for the interest of the general people of the nations and of course the AES. And nobody is going to hold them to ransom. Um, it is clear now that the currency of this dollar, this euro, all these currencies, they are all just paper, worthless paper. There is nothing tied to those currencies. There's no resources tied to it. On the African continent, we have the resources. And as I said, gold is appreciating in value. Let us listen a bit more to what they're saying, and I might expatiate further. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, well, first of all, the day they lowered the rate, Sean, the back end of the bond market sold off. That's the rest of the world saying, no, 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 no. You can lower the front end, but I'm not taking your 10 or your 30 at these rates. You kidding me? You need to pay more, because what you have done is that you have signaled what all central banks and politicians have done since the beginning of time, and that is to choose inflation over austerity. Now, the numbers that come out of the CPI, or the Bureau of Labor Statistics that comprise the CPI, should be called the CP lie. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, you should pull the L right out of that and just call it the BS that's
Exactly.
giving us the CP lie. Because, those numbers are changed and massaged completely and totally. There's a man that would be worthy of having on your show. His name is John Williams.
You see that? They are massaging those numbers. It's not me saying it. So when you look at the figures about the US dollar, the pound, it's all massaged numbers. And you tend to put your trust in that. You need to put your trust in your own hard mineral resources in your soil. Africans, we need to follow the footsteps of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Let's carry on.
The
Guy
shadow
from Shadow
steps.
Stats, you're right.
Yes. And all he does is tell us the way the numbers used to be. And he'll tell you that add an 8 to the 3% inflation that we have, and we have over 11. But let's just take it as it is, right? We'll take that 3%, 3.3 or 4% year over year inflation. They're 65% away from their target of 2%. That's not a victory whatsoever. That's waving the white flag. And so when you talk about these rate cuts, you continue to drop the front end of the curve. The rest of the world is not really caring much. I mean, we cannot continue to borrow at these levels in very short-term duration treasuries. It has to be much longer duration. And in order to entice people to own treasuries where you have default risk, you have inflation risk, sanction risk, confiscation risk, all of these risks, you better offer a rate compensatory with the risk. And that's why when they lowered rates, the back end went up. And you talk about, we keep spending and going into debt, and who's buying our treasuries? Well, it used to be countries like China, Japan, Saudi Arabia, India, all of these other countries who are now shedding US treasuries. Instead of dumping them, they're just letting them roll off their balance sheet and replacing it with things like gold, which is the only other tier one asset.
Are you all hearing that? Countries around the world are simply letting the dollar roll off their balance sheet and not use it as a reserve currency. On the African continent, we have better than that. Our resources are good. They are good bases on which we can actually back our currency. It is time. We need one single currency on the African continent right now. Just like Gaddafi envisaged, just like Nkrumah envisaged, just like Patrice Lumumba, all of those people. And this time, we need to keep an eye. No, we are not going to allow any of those colonials to unalive any of our leaders. We are watching them all like a hawk because this is totally unacceptable. And you heard this guy say many things about the failure of governance and the blatant exploitation. Let me go to, I'll show you something at the beginning quickly. Then I'll jump back to here. It's 11:05. Okay. I'll do something right quick. 1 second. Let me let you hear something here. There we go. Okay.
Standard in the world, especially out there in Wall Street, right? There's a big debate that US dollar bonds will remain the reserve asset of choice. And I'm sure you have warned many times that the global monetary system is going to change. And it's kind of happening in front of our eyes, right? We are seeing a move by central banks. They are putting less money to treasuries. In '08, it was around 40%, and now it has dropped to 15%. And now we have reports of Saudi Arabia buying gold instead of recycling those dollars back into US bonds. So is this trend going to escalate? And in your opinion, what's really driving this big shift?
100%. The trend will escalate. First of all, thanks for having me, Sean. I appreciate it.
That's Andy Shipman.
It's an honor to be here with you. I followed you, and I'm glad that you asked me to come on. So thank you very much. But yeah, the de-dollarization, and let's call it de-treasurization, even though I don't think that's really a word, is a trend that will continue. And it will continue simply out of the hubris of the United States and the West, for that matter. Weaponizing the treasury market is a line, really, to the extent that we've done, I don't think it's possible to even come back from. The world reserve currency should be impartial, and we should not go around the world weaponizing the treasury market to fit an agenda or criteria that we find just or that we align with ideologically. I'll give you an example. We stole $5 billion worth of U.S. treasury.
You heard that right. They stole $5 billion worth of U.S. Treasury. From who? Let's listen.
Treasuries. And from the Russians. We stole them. And we didn't sanction them. We defaulted on them, in essence, by taking them and using them, worse yet, to give to the country, largely in the form of weapons that they are in the midst of a hot war against. At the same time, Janet Yellen can tell CNN, listen, we're okay with Xi Jinping and Putin being friends in BRICS. And I'm thinking, well, thank you very much, Madam Secretary. That's quite benevolent of you. But she says if Xi gives one penny to Putin and his war machine, we will sanction their banks, their companies in Beijing itself. Never mind the $260 billion that we've given to the Ukraine without congressional oversight, the Stinger missiles and the F-16 jets, and training their pilots in the Arizona desert. That doesn't matter.
African leaders, these are the actions of United States that is talking to you about democracy and good governance. Not one single thing of what he has said thus far represents good governance or democracy. We must pull back from anything, any agreement entered into with the colonial West. They do whatever agreement you enter into with this, those governments or those bunch of people in government is not what the paper it's written on. We have the mineral resources on the African continent, as exemplified by what you're seeing being done by Burkina Faso and Niger and Mali. And that is why France and US and Germany and others, they are running around frantically, trying to make sure that we continue to be sucked into this fraudulent IMF and World Bank. Thankfully, Mali has pulled out. Burkina Faso and Niger know that have pulled out. We need to pull out of all of those things. We have to create our own financial systems, our own financial structures on the African continent, backed by our resources, 100%. Let's carry on. Let's carry on.
Matter were the reserve currency, or never mind the fact that 20 years ago we entered Iraq looking for weapons of mass destruction, destroyed the country, toppled the regime, and guess what? We're sorry, we didn't find any there. I guess we.
So they destroyed the current country. They have not even apologized. They've not paid compensation. Nothing. Listen on. Is that who we want to continue to trade with? This kind of people that carry out, this is literally colonial impunity that they're going around the world doing. We have no business as Africans have anything to do with them. There should be no U.S. military base on our soil. Let's carry on.
We were wrong about that. But guess what? We're still here 20 years later. We're still inside your country. We are still occupying your country. And guess what? 14 of your banks, they had the audacity to try and cool the homes in Iraq in the midst of a summer by buying liquid natural gas that had been routed through Iranian banks. No, those banks are sanctioned. So what did we do? We sanctioned 14 of the Iraqi banks while we're still occupying their country.
Can you see this? This should be a warning to all African countries. When you have military bases, the US, they are an occupying force. Your sovereignty is zero once you have the military of the US or any of those colonials on your soil. Let's carry on.
A country that we toppled. And they asked us for $90 billion last year, Iraq did, because you see, their oil revenue of the 90 billion that they made, they asked us for 1 billion, excuse me.
Can you see that? Iraq made 90 billion of their oil revenue, and they are asking back for 1 billion of their own money. The US have not given them. It sounds a lot like what the French have been doing on the African soil. Please tell me, when are you the puppets of the West on the African continent? When are you going to wake up? You are hearing this from an African, from a US man about his own government. The kind of injustice they are perfecting all over the world. We need to follow what is being done by Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso, Assimi Goïta of Mali, and General Cheni of Niger. We must do that immediately. Let's carry on.
1 billion. They hold or made 90 billion in oil revenue in 2023. Asked us for $1 billion, and we said, it's your money, but it's just not a good time. Check back later.
So they're holding on to 90 billion of Iraqi money. And these are the kind of people you want to do business with? Where are your heads, African leaders? Where is your head? They invaded Iraq, destroyed Iraq. 1.5 to 2 million people were unalived by the actions of the US and the Western forces combined. They've not paid them back. They're taking control of their oil. They have, the Iraq have 90 billion. And these are the people we want to continue to trade with. African leaders, what is going on? Are you listening? Are you all listening? Follow what Ibrahim Traore is doing. Assimi Goïta, Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso, Assimi Goïta of Mali, and General Cheni of Niger. They are giving us the way forward. We want nothing to do with these people that are taking over your land, taking over your resources, and carrying out horrendous unaliving on the soil. They are doing this in Congo. They are doing it in Sudan. They're doing it in all over Africa. That is why it is a brave thing that Niger did, sending the US out, sending the French out. Likewise Mali, likewise Burkina Faso. And we must support them. Listen on.
So what have they done? They've joined the BRICS, fully applied. They have made trading in dollars illegal if you own a business.
Did you hear that? Iraq has made trading in dollars illegal. Listen to it. They've now joined the BRICS. They are looking at, they have the resources. We have the resources. There's no reason why we should be using the US dollar. The US dollar is finished. Let's carry on.
Business and do so, and trade in dollars, you'll be arrested, put in jail, and they'll take your business. The country has rid itself of all green dollar bills out of every bank as of January 1 of this year. They're gone.
You listening?
And they are in the process of kicking Western coalition forces out of the country.
You see?
So from a standpoint of weapons,
this is why we're saying on the African continent, all the military forces of the West must clear out. They cause nothing but destruction, death, impoverishment. Send them packing out of the African continent. They have done enough damages for over 500 years. Enough is enough. You are hearing it from a US man, not myself. Listen on.
Weaponization, absolutely it continues. And then let's look at the performance. Over the past 25 years, gold has doubled the performance of the 10-year treasury, doubled it without the counterparty risk. Gold is an asset that has no counterparty risk or is not simultaneously someone else's liability.
Gold has doubled in value. We have it in African soil. It is our mineral resources. This is what they've came for. All of this religion that they've been putting in our faces to cover our minds from knowing our resources, or being able to, or using our resources. They want to occupy our mind with nonsense while they loot our resources. Occupy our minds with debts, fictitious debts of IMF and World Bank while they loot our resources. We want nothing to do with them. Follow the example of Mali. They've kicked out IMF from their country. They don't want anything to do with them. They have the resources. They can go and let's see if they can eat their paper. Let's see if their paper can be converted to any kind of wealth. We know our gold is what is. We are good for our gold. It's going up in value. You heard him say it. You heard him say it. Let's listen on.
And so when you realize that these countries can shed treasuries, which have paled in comparisons in terms of performance to gold, while at the same time carrying counterparty liability, both in also in default, in inflation, and also in weaponization risk. Whereas they can hold gold, which the Bank of International Settlements reclassified in 2019 as the world's only other tier one asset next to US dollars and treasuries. And you ask yourself, is there any coincidence?
So the gold is now tier one asset. It's tier one asset, just as good as and definitely better than gold. The value is going up. We have it in our soil. That's our mineral resources all over the African continent. Citizens, it is time to start telling people that you don't want the government. You have to start telling your government you don't want them to do anything with IMF because the IMF is there to loot your resources. It is your right as a sovereign of the African continent to come together, community by community. Tell them any loan, they must let you know. If they're doing anything with IMF, you all as sovereigns collectively reject it because you know the IMF are there to come and loot your resources. They're not adding value to anything on your continent. They are just sucking out. They're sucking out your resources and keeping you impoverished. Let's carry on.
That the central banks of the world have been accumulating gold the way that they have over the last several years, after, of course, the realization of it being reclassified as the only other tier one asset.
Gold is the only other tier one asset, the main asset. What they call the so-called greenback, a fancy name for just a piece of worthless paper, not backed by any resources. It's losing value because they are printing and exporting inflation all around the world and using that to suck your wealth into the economy. You need to dedollarize on the African continent ASAP. Yesterday, 2 years ago. Let's go. Time you wake up, African popular leaders, wake up.
It makes great sense to continue to de-dollarize and to de-treasurize. We have squandered the good graces of our foreign creditors and disrespected the privilege, the exorbitant privilege of being the world reserve currency, not only in our massive debt accumulation of $100,000 per second, Sean. One, two, three, and keep going all day long until your fingers fall off and you can't stop snapping. And then keep going some more. That's 100,000 per second. That's a trillion every 90 days. A trillion seconds ago was 31,688 years ago. And we are printing that kind of money or going into debt that much every 90 days. It took 200 years to do the first time. So from a standpoint of mismanagement of the currency, from a standpoint of weaponization of the dollar and the treasury market, in which much of the world views as wholly hypocritical, we are and have, in many respects, I think, squandered this privilege. And so, yes, this is a trend that will continue. And it's not just the US dollar. If you realize that
So let's stop there. We played that earlier on. Let's go forward, skip forward a bit again. I just wanted you to hear what is going on. This is by a US man, he trades in dollars and everything else about shares and all of that, and securities and all of that, and stocks and all of that. And when he's telling you that the dollar is depreciating and the gold is appreciating in value, we have the gold in our soil. We have no business doing anything with the US. We have no business having any interaction with IMF or World Bank. Follow the example of Mali, please. Let's go ahead. So we're gonna go forward a little bit. We'll skip along a little bit. I might not play all of it. I might do this in two parts, but I wanted to just hear what's being said here. 1 second. Okay, there we are.
The performance, and now we're supposed to believe that a country like the United Kingdom, Ireland, and Saudi Arabia, Cayman Islands, are buying up all our treasures. If you think how lunacy it is that you have a country like the UK, which is broken, insolvent, buying the debt of even more.
The UK is broke and insolvent because they haven't got mineral resources like we have. Okay, they haven't. They haven't. In the whole of UK, I don't think they have up to 10 tons of gold in the whole of UK. And that's even to even find those 10 tons. Do you know how much earth they'll have to dig out? Yes. 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 Okay. Do I want to check this? Give me 1 sec. He touched on that UK is bankrupt. So they say, I just put it here for you to see. The UK has 10 tons of gold mineral reserves. They hold 310 tons, in the Bank of England. Obviously, where did those gold come from? All of the countries that they've gone around the world and colonized, obviously. Let me read. I'll zoom in a little bit just to make it easier for you. So it says here, abstract. Britain is a country with modest gold deposits. That is gold reserves, gold mineral reserves. At least 6 tons, possibly up to, can you listen? Let me go back. At least 6 tons. Let me see if I can get, is that going to work? I was trying to, possibly up to 10 tons of gold have been recovered from numerous localities in Britain. Recent discoveries have revealed another 6 tons in Scotland, over 30 tons in Northern Ireland. You can see that they're playing with words there. You said you have 10 tons, and 6 and 30. How much do we have all over Africa, for example? You can begin to see what I mean. I'm just giving you facts here. We're giving you facts. In Nigeria alone, we have 600,000 tons. Not even to talk of Ghana and other places. Look, I'm not trying to just wake up. It's time. We are giving you information. Please do share. Let's carry on.
We're broken, insolvent country like the United States, in order for us to just pay the interest on the debt we've already lent out or borrowed, and then to give most of it, the excess, away to countries like the Ukraine in the form of weapons, a war we shouldn't be involved in. This whole thing is upside down. But in terms of inflation, yes, you talk about a $35 trillion debt. That doesn't even take into account Medicare Part B, $99 trillion underfunded. Part D, the prescription, $22 trillion underfunded. Social Security, $77 trillion. Government, military pensions, and all these other entitlements. We are $200 trillion in debt, both on and off balance sheet. We will never pay that back. So if you balance the budget today, which we won't, we have a government that is sick. It's like a heroin addict who just needs another shot of heroin in order to keep going, because they spend money like it just doesn't matter. They spend money at a rate, as we were saying, of 100,000 per second. That is just obnoxious. It's irresponsible fiscal policy. And if we balance the budget today,
irresponsible fiscal policy by the country that we are going to get loans from. The loans that they give you loans that is not backed by anything except their paper. and they use that to take your wealth. Are you listening? You have the gold. Your gold is more valuable than their piece of paper. It's worthless. It's worthless. Follow the example of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, like yesterday. Urgently. Don't bury your head in the sand. Don't keep believing the lies of this worthless piece of paper that go a dollar, a pound, a euro. They are worthless piece of paper, not backed by any mineral reserves whatsoever. Quote me. Let's carry on.
We fire every one of these politicians and say, "Get your ass in order, man," and we balance it. Who's going to pay the unfunded liabilities of Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and government military pensions? That's 160 or 70 trillion in and of itself. It's game over.
And you see that? Medicaid and everything else, 160, 70 trillion. Let's carry on and listen. That's how much in debt they are. They're up to 200 trillion in debt in total. Minus the national debt of 335 trillion. On top of that, 170. You are hearing him say it. Listen on.
And the question is, how does it unfold? Is it through inflation? Is it through default? Are we finding a villain by weaponizing the dollar, signing an executive order to go green, incentivizing all these countries to push back against the dollar? And it's Xi Jinping and Putin's fault and OPEC. How could they do this to us? Or maybe do we revalue the price of gold? Because, you know, all of the gold in every balance sheet in around the world and central banks is held in an account called the gold revaluation account.
You see?
And you hear the head of the Dutch National Bank keep talking about revaluing the price of gold to offset the liabilities on their balance sheet. Or even look at Cynthia Loomis, the senator from Wyoming, who proposed revaluing the gold the Fed is holding on behalf of the Treasury to fund a strategic Bitcoin account that Trump had talked about at the Bitcoin meeting in Tennessee a few weeks ago. There are options on the table, but any way you look at it, we are so far down the rabbit hole that anyone that would hold the treasury debt of this country in any duration longer than 6 months, I think is crazy.
Stop putting our reserves in US currency. It's a way to suck out our wealth. When they come to your land and buy your resources in your local rate at dirt cheap prices, and then when they're going to sell anything to you, they inflate the price. So you have to pay more of your own currency for whatever they make for you. After they came to take your stuff for peanuts. This is economic madness. Let's follow the idea, what Mali, Burkina Faso, and Nigeria are doing right now. All African leaders, we need a meeting. Get these people off African continent right now. This is a US man telling you everything that's going on. It's not me. You need to hear this. And thanks to Sean Fu, who is on, follow him. He's a great guy. He talks about things, and this guy is giving you the facts. These are things that those worthless currency markets and all of that figures. It's all cooked up. These are cooked up numbers, backed by nothing. On the African continent, you can back your currency with your mineral resources. I've just told you, UK has not up to 10 tons of gold in the entire UK. It's time we woke up.
And it will continue to go that way. And yes, I think inflation is just beginning and is not going away. They should have never lowered rates. They should have raised rates, because is it really, if you're going on a 1,000-mile journey and you end up 450 miles into the journey, we're there, we're done, shut off the engines, we're 65% away from the target, and we're saying, job well done.
In this case, right, does it even matter who wins the US elections? Because we're kind of caught between the devil and the deep blue sea.
I'm going to make that into a second part of the discussion. I'm not going to go into that now. We're going to do that separately. The reason I did this show tonight is we need a cogent discussion for countries like Nigeria, Kenya, all African countries that are basically puppet nations of the West, and even Arabs, to wake up. They are all eyeing our mineral resources. That is where the real wealth lies. by tricking you into go and sign IMF and World Bank loan. Those papers, they now say, oh, it's worth X amount that we can use to take your resources. It's worthless piece of paper. That's why they're having to print more and more and more of it. They haven't got enough gold. The more they print, the less the value of their that dollar. It becomes worthless. And you are chasing that, and they're printing it and giving you, put in your face, take more of this, take more of this. The more they give you, the less the value. And of course, they keep the value of your own currency down. We must control that because we own those resources. It's in our soil. It's time our people benefit from this. So I will come and do a part 2 of this, to break it down. But I wanted to talk about this. I'm probably going to come on a live and talk about this, but it's really important to look at this. I don't want to talk about the election because we're not interested in that. We just want to make you understand that right now, they know that the gold that you have is appreciating in value and their dollar is dropping in value. And they want you to believe that that system is working. And the only reason that they're saying that system is working is they are just printing. They are printing dollars that is backed by nothing. They're just printing paper. African leaders wake up, they're just printing paper. And they are using that to trick you. Oh, go and speak to IMF, whatever name they call it, all fancy names. It all leads to one thing. They have nothing backing that currency. And they want to put any value on it to make your currency worthless so they can get your resources dirt cheap prices. Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso have put a stop to all that nonsense. We must follow suit in the whole of Africa. What are your thoughts on this? How do you view this? Let's pause here. I will be coming back tomorrow later on and we'll talk about this. I'm probably going to do a live. Please, if you do want to get this, I'm going to I'll do some more work in terms of getting this outfit, the goodness, the beanie and the hoodie. The hoodie is 40 pounds and the beanie is 20 pounds. If you would like to get it, please do get in touch. And the reason why, because we know the message that we are about is really about integrity, about speaking truth to power, about sharing awareness, and we do a lot of research. Obviously, you can see that when we come on live, we do a lot of research and we bring that to you. To be able to help us continue doing that, I would really like it if you can buy the t-shirt or download our song, How Long Will Not Going to Suffer. Help us share it to more people because we need to wake up our consciousness as Africans. We have everything that we need. We don't need to be borrowing using the IMF or World Bank. It is a way to entrap Africa in debt, to allow them to take our resources at dirt cheap prices. We need to pull out of those systems just like Mali has just done. I'll come back and talk some more about that. Thanks to Sean Fu and the shirt man for that discussion that I shared. But yeah, we wanted to just really let you be aware of this. So I will be back and I'll talk to you again. It's been a pleasure. You listen to Season A, the platform where we speak to you. I'll talk to you later on. Bye for now. Thank you. Before I go, please don't. Let me do this quickly. Let me. Please subscribe to Season A. Hit the notification button, give us thumbs up, and help us reach more people. We really do need your support. Oftentimes, it's often best to, when I'm no expert in this field of stock market and shares and stocks and securities and bonds and all of that. I have an idea of what it is, and but it's all systems that is backed by nothing. It's paper that's backed by nothing. Our resources, they are what they need. We can build and we must build our own systems, financial structures that they have to feed into. We must take back control of our continent. One currency, one security, one passport for Africans, making sure that we control who goes in and out and restrict the movement of these people that have enslaved us for over 400 years on our own continent. It's enough. It's time to wake up. It's not about hating. It's about taking control on our continent. Enough of this injustice. The dollar is a way to trick you. It's backed by nothing. Okay? It's time we woke up. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Season AY, the platform where we speak with the power. What are your thoughts on this and what we just said? Please do share. Let's hear your views. Do you like the hoodie and the t-shirt, and the hoodie and the beanie? Like I said, the hoodie is 40 quid. The beanie is 20. Get in touch. I'll be putting some links up in the coming days where we'll give you more information how you can get that. And let me know what you think about it. How does it feel? Does it look good? You know. So, but we'll be in touch later on. Listen, thank you very much. You've been listening to Season AY, the platform where we speak with about later on. Thank you and bye for now. Bye for now.